भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तन्न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः।
Gurubhyo Namaha. We continue with chapter 4, Gnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, the yoga of knowledge of renunciation of action. And here is the essence of the verses 16 and 17, translation and commentary by Maharshi Ji. Kim karma kim akarma iti kavayah api atra mohitaah tatte karma pravakshyami yat gnatva mokshase ashubhat. Next verse. Karmana hi api bodhavyam bodhavyancha vikarmanah akarmanascha bodhavyam Gahana Karmana Gatihi. Here is the English translation. Verse number 16. What is action? What inaction? Even the wise are bewildered here. I shall expound to you that action, knowing which you will be freed from evil. Verse 17. Action indeed should be understood. Wrong action should also be understood, and inaction should be understood as well. unfathomable is the course of action. Now let us just touch the verse 15 where we left off. Having known this, even the ancient seekers of liberation performed action. Therefore, you perform action as did the ancient in old days. So here Bhagavan is making it clear that knowledge of the three gunas and their interplay should be supplemented by the knowledge of the essential nature of Supreme Bhagavan, so that it may bring fulfillment to the state of liberation. And here Bhagavan is also stating that even the ancient seekers of liberation like Janaka and others needed action. Action is necessary even for those who have devoted their lives to the pursuit of truth and are not interested in anything other than liberation. Further, Bhagavan says, knowledge about the real nature of Bhagavan is a prerequisite for the activity of seekers of liberation. Now we will continue. Verse 16. What is action and what is inaction? Even the wise are bewildered here. I shall expound to you that action, knowing which you will be freed from evil. Again, what is action and what is inaction? Even the wise are bewildered here. I shall expound to you that action, knowing which you will be freed from evil. In the last two preceding verses, Bhagavan has proclaimed liberation from bondage through knowledge of the non-involved nature of the Transcendental Lord. Now here in this verse, Bhagavan promises freedom through knowledge even of the relative field, the knowledge of activity and non-activity. So again here, Bhagavan in this verse is promising freedom through knowledge even of the relative field, which is the knowledge of activity and the non-activity. So let us go into more details on this. In the previous verse, Bhagavan gave Arjuna reasons for action. So it is natural that in this verse he should bring out the gravity and far-reaching influence of action in order to prepare Arjuna's mind for the details of that action, so that this action will be useful to him and deliver him from all evil. So let us see here what keeps one under the binding influence of action. Bhagavan says, ignorance of one's own blissful divine nature as non-involved and independent of activity keeps one under the binding influence of action, causing the complications and suffering of life. And when Bhagavan says, even the wise are bewildered over the issue of action and inaction, now let us see who is this wise man who is bewildered. The wise man is he who has understood that action is by virtue of the three gunas and that he himself remains uninvolved because his true nature is transcendental. Further, Bhagavan is saying, Such understanding is not sufficient, for even the wise continue to be bewildered. When Bhagavan says that even the wise are bewildered over action and inaction, he further means gaining freedom from action is one thing. Gaining full knowledge about action and inaction is quite another thing. In the following verse, that is the next verse, Bhagavan also says unfathomable is the course of action. It is impossible to know the full range of action on the level of intellectual understanding. And that is why Bhagavan says, even the wise are bewildered. Previously, we have seen that in chapter 2, Bhagavan has said, having gained equanimity, you will not incur sin. And here Bhagavan is saying, I shall expound to you that action, knowing which you will be freed from evil. And here we need to understand the ascending order of Bhagavan's teaching as the capacity for understanding increases. And as the capacity for understanding increases, the teaching is imparted in subtler yet simpler forms. Earlier, it is implied that something has to be done to gain the equanimity which will result in freedom from sin. Now here in the present verse, Bhagavan shows that nothing has to be done, that simply by the knowledge of activity, Arjuna will be freed from evil. So now the teaching has shifted from the level of doing to the level of knowing. It may well be that as the teaching advances, even knowing will be replaced by a simpler process on the common sensory level of hearing or seeing. And this is the technique of teaching Samkhya, where a series of arguments will eventually culminate in some simple spoken word which will revolutionize the whole understanding of life and will once and for all raise a man to the state of eternal freedom from bondage. So now we understand clearly that this verse is promising freedom through knowledge even of the relative field, and this knowledge of activity and non-activity. And this knowledge is given in the next 5 verses. Bhagavan continues, action indeed should be understood. Wrong action should also be understood, and inaction should be understood as well. Unfathomable is the course of action. Again, action indeed should be understood. Wrong action should also be understood, and inaction should be understood as well. Unfathomable is the course of action. Here, Bhagavan has said that knowledge of action is necessary, and yet the course of action being unfathomable, knowledge of it must remain incomplete. And here, very beautifully, Bhagavan brings to light a technique by which the effect of knowledge will be gained without the necessity for gaining the knowledge. And this is because Bhagavan's teaching is not for the sake of knowledge as such. It is solely to produce a specific effect in practical life. So here, what is important is the effect and not just the knowledge. So this is the discourse of Yoga Shastra, the most practical philosophy of divine union. And its whole purpose is to give the practical wisdom whereby any man may naturally gain the highest good through his activity. Now, having given this introduction, let us see how Bhagavan brings out further knowledge of this verse. Again, action indeed should be understood. Wrong action should also be understood, and inaction should be understood as well. Unfathomable is the course of action. So here Bhagavan is saying, in order to understand action, it is necessary to know the different states of consciousness of the actor or the one who is performing the action. So why is it important to know the different states of consciousness of the one who is performing action? It is because the value of action depends mainly upon the level of consciousness of the one who acts. The possible states of consciousness are waking, dreaming, sleeping, transcendental consciousness, cosmic consciousness, and God consciousness. And further, when Bhagavan is saying action, what he is meaning here is right action. And what is this right action? It is that which produces life-supporting effects for the doer and for the entire creation. So right action is something which will produce supporting effects for the doer and for the entire creation. Right action is also that which helps the evolution of the individual and simultaneously serves the cosmic purpose. And such action, that means the right action, is possible only when man's mind is in complete harmony with the transcendent being. And now we already know that this transcendent being underlies all creation and is the basis of all life and all the laws of nature or the dharma. And so this is the case, or this happens in cosmic consciousness. Now, God consciousness is another state where such action is automatically carried out. Again, God consciousness is another state where such action is automatically carried out. In cosmic consciousness, a man established in cosmic life performs action as an individual. In the state of God consciousness, the individual's activity set in the light of God is on a level which corresponds to the level of cosmic activity. He lives the eternal unity of life through all activity. Again, in cosmic consciousness, the man is established in cosmic life and he performs action as an individual. You understand here? He performs action as an individual. Whereas in the state of God consciousness, the individual's activity is set in the light of God and it's on a level which corresponds to the level of cosmic activity. Here he is not individual. This is important to understand. He lives the eternal unity of life through all activity. That means he is in eternal unity with God through all activity. So here we can even say that all activity is actually coming from Bhagavan and one is just being the instrument bringing out this activity. Whereas in cosmic consciousness, one is established in being and performing the individual actions. When Bhagavan says, unfathomable is the course of action, He's saying one's natural activities in the three relative states of consciousness, waking, dreaming, and sleeping, are governed by the dharma of one's level of evolution. This dharma differs at different levels of evolution. Moreover, even on the same level, dharma differs in different circumstances and in different spheres of life. In all these differences, there is the additional complexity that in each case, dharma refers not only to activity as it affects the individual, but also as it affects the family, the society, the nation, and the world. So here, every thought, word, or act sets up waves of influence in the atmosphere. And these waves travel through space and strike against everything in creation. Wherever they strike, they have some effect. The effect of a particular thought on any particular object cannot be known because of the diversity and vast extent of creation. This complexity goes beyond the possibility of comprehension. And this is why Bhagavan says, unfathomable is the course of action. So again, one's activity is governed by the dharma of one's level of evolution or consciousness. And then dharma differs at different levels of evolution or consciousness. And even on the same level, dharma again differs under different circumstances and different spheres of life. Then there is the additional complexity with each action, and that in each case, dharma refers not only to the activity affecting the individual, but it affects the family, the society, the world on a very big scale. And so here, every thought, word, or act set up waves of influence in the atmosphere. And these waves travel through space and strike against everything in creation. And wherever they strike, they have some effect. And what kind of effect this is producing on every particular object or a person, individual, it cannot be known because of the diversity and vast extent of creation. And this complexity goes beyond the possibility of normal comprehension. And this is why Bhagavan says, unfathomable is the course of action. Now let us look at wrong action. When Bhagavan says wrong action, it can be of many kinds. Actions that harm the doer in the present or the future, those that do not succeed, actions that hinder evolution, actions that lead to dissolution or destruction, actions that bind the doer to the cycle of birth and death, and actions that produce life-damaging influences upon the surroundings and upon others, and also actions that are creating damaging influences upon the surroundings and upon others, and that are also against the laws of nature, or the Prakriti Dharma. So now we begin to understand that even the field of wrong action is found to be unfathomable. So the field of action and right action is unfathomable, and the field of wrong action is also unfathomable. And further, the wrong actions are possible so long as the doer is in a state of ignorance about his own dharma and so long as he is unaware of the essential nature of his own self. And also, so long as he is unaware of the nature of activity, the nature of the action, and the true nature of God, and so long as his waking state of consciousness is not supported by transcendental pure consciousness. So again, the wrong actions are possible as long as the doer is in a state of ignorance about his own dharma, and he is not aware of the essential nature of his own self, and he is not aware of the nature of activity, and he is not aware of the nature of God, and his waking state of consciousness is not supported by transcendental pure consciousness. Now let us look at inaction. Inaction here is absence of activity, and here we can see inaction primarily in the deep sleep, because deep sleep is a state of inaction, but it is not the only such state. The state of inaction is also found in transcendental consciousness when one attains the samadhi and when one is the pure self alone, then there is no action there. And also of cosmic consciousness, because in cosmic consciousness it is an essential constituent where you remain uninvolved in the activity, because of the you know that you are the self and the activity is separate from the self. And also of God consciousness, the highest state of human evolution. So here we see that on one hand, inaction is the inertia of sleep, while on the other hand, it becomes the basis of the living reality of the whole cosmos. This is very beautiful here. You need to understand this. This inaction here in the higher states of consciousness becomes the basis of the living reality of the whole cosmos. And that is why Bhagavan, when he says inaction should be understood as well, this means not only action but also inaction to be unfathomable. Now we have come, action is unfathomable, both right action and wrong action. Now inaction is also unfathomable. When Bhagavan says action indeed needs to be understood, the word indeed emphasizes the need for knowledge of action, because life means action and no one can escape activity. And this being so, it is wise to know not only what one is going to do, but where as a result one is going to end up. Now, it is very important to understand here that Bhagavan, having admitted that the course of action is unfathomable and having emphasized that it has to be understood, he manages to steer a fine course between these opposing facts. Here, Bhagavan has to convey this knowledge of action, but at the same time, he is giving a model, a mode of instruction whereby, without knowledge of the whole field of action, one can acquire every benefit that such knowledge could bestow. Just because action is unfathomable, the inaction is unfathomable, and so one cannot know the whole field of action, still Bhagavan is saying you can gain the benefit of every action you do by following his practical instruction. So here he brings to light the art of action, whereby without having to gain knowledge of action, one can enjoy the blessings which such knowledge would give. And this art of action is like the art of a gardener who, by watering the root, makes the sap rise to every part of the tree without having to know anything about the mechanics of rising sap. So here the gardener is just watering the root, and he doesn't have to know the whole details and the whole knowledge of the sap, and he is making the plant grow healthy. And so here again, this is the marvel of perfection of this discourse. Bhagavan has said that knowledge of action is necessary, and yet the course of action being unfathomable, knowledge of it must remain incomplete. So he therefore brings to light a technique by which the effects of knowledge will be gained without the necessity for gaining the knowledge. And we know that this technique will be raising the consciousness. Finally, it's important again to understand that Bhagavan's teaching is not for the sake of knowledge as such. It is solely to produce a specific effect in practical life. And here it is important that to know that what is important is the effect and not the knowledge alone. And this is the discourse of the Yoga Shastra, the most practical philosophy of divine union. And again, its whole purpose is to give the practical wisdom whereby any man may naturally gain the highest good through his activity. Here ends the essence of the verses 16 and 17, chapter 4, Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, the yoga of knowledge of renunciation of action. Now what I want to do is, I want to add some more knowledge of this karma, what Maharshi Ji has said in the Science of Being. I will try to look into that and see to bring the essence of that so that it will be more complete. So that knowledge will become a supplement of this verse number 18. So we will call this 18a, and that will be 18b, because the whole attempt is to gain and more clarity, and in reality this more and more clarity will come only when you are rising in consciousness. It cannot come on the intellectual level, it cannot come on the logical conclusions. It will only come with the expansion of the consciousness. So I will not add any more here today. So I will end here. Jai Gurudev, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu.